Coming to America today. Of course, Neil Diamond made that famous in his song, Coming to America. And he says in it, today! Anyway, we're talking about immigration here in this shindig. And that's kind of what we're going to get into here. First off, we have to understand there's many periods of immigration in the United States. It's not simply one time where it happens. Now, my generation, we think about when, or any generation really thinks about when their parents, or not, excuse me, when their ancestors immigrated. So for me, my ancestors immigrated around 1870, so shortly after the Civil War. Today we hear immigration, we think about a lot of Central America, Spanish America immigration, or American immigration, and we hear about a border wall. Yes, that's part of it, but that is definitely only a razor thin piece of the story when it comes to immigration to the United States. The first immigrants, as we well know, were the people on the Mayflower. Well, actually, even before that, it was the Jamestown colony, and even before that, the Roanoke colonies. People that came here and tried to establish colonies, they were immigrants. They were coming from other places to new places. Then you see the French come in. Of course, we all know we talked about the colonial stories and whatnot, and how that all went. But then you advance on, you start seeing Germans, Norwegians, and Dutch. After the United States is established as a country in the early 1820s, we start seeing this first influx of Western Europeans moving here, particularly Germans, and then eventually the Irish. And what's interesting is the Irish are not what I would call well respected. In fact, the Irish are pretty much nobody could stand them. So it's interesting. Today we say who's Irish, and we get a whole lot of hands up, and whether people are or aren't, they think they are, but because just hey, it's cool to be Irish now. At that time, if you were Irish, you didn't admit it if you didn't have to, because people wouldn't hire Irish people. They thought they were drunks and fighters, and basically said that there's no need for them to do anything other than maybe menial dock work jobs and things like that. It's an interesting time in our history. And then, of course, as we advance through, you start seeing the Norwegians, the Swedish, the Scandinavian countries, and then you start seeing more Eastern European. You start getting into the Italian migration, Greek, and other groups that start coming to the United States. And of course, as we continue to progress through the whole thing, you're seeing Chinese immigration to the west coast of the United States. People never think about that, but that's been present all the way through. We start seeing Middle Eastern immigration. We start seeing Latin American immigration into this country. So there's a lot of different periods, and certainly we are currently in another period of immigration. Now, why do they come here? Why do people come to the United States? Because they see an opportunity for a better life. Because the situation they're living in is not good, and they perceive that the situation in the United States is better, and that they will have an opportunity to build a new and better life for themselves. That's why they leave their homelands, give up everything to move to a new place. Again, you can see right here what pushes somebody out, or convinces people to leave. Opportunity is the big one. They see an opportunity, whether it's land, whether it's religion, whether it's money, whether it's work or jobs. They see an opportunity to move away from where they are and try to start over in a new place. So we call them push-pull factors, and that's what we're going to talk about right here. Push factors. They're the things that push you out of a place. Okay. And push factors will convince you that I don't like what's going on here. I got to get away from it, so to speak. Pull factors are things that pull you into something. I really like what's going on over there, so I want to be a part of it. Those are pull factors. So push factors and pull factors. And usually what happens when we start seeing mass immigration, where lots of people are immigrating from one place, is there's some pretty heavy push factors that you can see on the left side: population pressure, poor infrastructure, inadequate job offers, bad education chances, poor health care, ecological problems, natural disasters, social compulsion, or the pull factors, improvement in the standard of living, better health care and availability of services, varied employment opportunities, higher wages, quality of education, no social compulsions, and future prospects. So push pull factors are a huge piece of that. As you can see here, push factors: poor situation in the country you live in. There's no jobs, there's no money. What do you do? Maybe you're sick of violence. Maybe it's war torn where you live. That's what's causing a lot of the Middle Eastern immigration to the United States. There's a lot of war torn nations that have been fighting for years, and people are trying to get away from that. Or maybe things are extremely poor, and moving would present an opportunity to have a better situation. And then, of course, the pull factors. Basically, the situation somewhere else is too good to pass up because there's high-paying jobs, there's college opportunities, there's all kinds of money available, there's land available, or at least you perceive it to be that way. There's a lot of people who I think have immigrated, and again, I don't necessarily mean in today's standards, but there's a lot of people who will have this idea in their head of, I moved to the United States and everything happens. We know when we live here, you got to work for that stuff. But keep in mind that there's many people who move to the United States and live on the lower side of the socioeconomic pyramid, so to speak, meaning they still live what would be considered by most standards in the United States of a poor person's life, essentially, not making a lot of money, and they're still in a way better situation than they were in their home country. So you have to understand that as well, that there's places where it's really bad as far as standard of living and whatnot, where being poor in America is still better than being middle class in their home country. There's quotas. We won't get too much into it. You don't see this anymore, but it used to be at one time there would be limits, a limit on how many people could come in from one country in a given year. And usually it was only a few thousand, depending on the country and the size of the country. And yeah, there was some racism that played into that. Countries that the United States had better relationships with, they would let more people in. From countries that the United States didn't have great relationships, they'd back them down. Then assimilation, and this is a big thing, changing to fit the culture with the area you move to. So we always hear about the melting pot there. You can see on the left, you've got the Chinese, Irish, Italian, Mexican, Russian, and all coming in to form Americans. There's that melting pot, and basically assimilation is a two-way street. Yes, you're going to have to adjust to the new culture. You can't expect everybody to change to what you've known when they have an established culture in wherever they are. But at the same time, they have to understand that you're going to bring some influences as well, and hopefully they'll be able to. And they should be willing to accept some of your cultural ideas and cultural standards too, and blend it all together. And you never know what kind of cool stuff can come out of that. Again, immigrate, it means to come to a new country permanently. So if you're emigrating out and immigrating in. That's how I always remember it. Immigrate is in. Emigrate is your exiting. Immigrating is your inning, or however you want to say it. You're coming in. Okay? Into the country is immigrate. And finally, emigrate means you're leaving, you're exiting. Peace out, deuces, goodbye. I am emigrating out of here permanently. That's how it goes down. All right, folks, I appreciate your time. Hopefully this is a good little introduction for you to immigration in America. There's way more that we can get into with this. It's a big topic, and we'll bring more to the table here later on. Thanks, folks.